Until this is ready, I'm going to invite Joyce to the podium here. Okay. So from now on, this competition will be called the Brian Moss Student Competition, starting the 5th competition. We are still dealing today with the 4th competition, but starting from now on, it will be the Brian Moss Student Competition, and I'm very happy to have you here with us, Joyce, to say a few words.
Thank you. Do I have to press anything? Okay. Thank you, Tamar. Hello, everybody. Brian and I met when we were undergraduates at the University of Bristol, and I think his first influence into limnology was Frank Round, who was lecturing psychology, who talked about the English Lake District. After that, Brian thought, I want to do research with Frank. And he did that, and while he was doing the research, he came across 2 papers which influenced him even more. This was all hard copy, of course, there was no internet. One of the papers was by G. Evelyn Hutchinson, who worked on South African pans, and the other by Penelope Jenkin, working on the Rift Valley Lakes of East Africa. From then, having read that, he said, I want to go to Africa. Travel was very expensive then. We hadn't done very much of it. We certainly hadn't been to Africa. But after he finished his PhD, we went to Malawi to work on Lake Chilwa. That was his first taste of Africa, but it was by far not the last. He went back whenever he could. He did a lot of teaching for the Tropical Biological Association, and he worked with other people whenever he could. But after Malawi, went to the United States, saw different kinds of lakes there than we have in Britain. And from then on, I think he visited every continent except Antarctica. And a holiday for him was never complete without a wild place to go to, preferably wild and watery. He loved cities, but I could always see him getting a bit restless if he couldn't get out of them. So he loved doing research. He was once offered a job in London in administration. They were going to double his salary as an academic, but he didn't think twice about it. He said, no, I don't want that. I don't want to sit at a desk all day. I want to get out into the wild. As well as the research, he valued good scientific writing, by which he meant as simple as is possible to explain, not using convoluted sentences which you might have to read twice to work out what the author is trying to say. And this competition celebrates those 2 things, the rigorous research and the good writing up of that research. So he was a modest man, and I think he would be very surprised if he knew that his name was going to be associated with this competition, but he also would approve because it values the 2 things that he valued. So I thank Tamar and the SIL committee for approving the change of name. I also congratulate the winner and runners-up of this year's competition. There were lots of entries, and I hope that in future the competition will continue to attract lots of entries from young SIL members. Thank you.
So again, for all those who just entered late, from now on, we have a Brian Moss Fund to fund the student competitions in the future. And we're very grateful. And I'd like to just a few little details about the 4th competition. We had 41 applications from 20 countries. And thanks to the mentors and to the supervisors and to anybody who encouraged students to participate in this competition. Also thanks to the national representatives and national committees that helped select the one paper and applicants to represent their country in the international stage of the competition, which is the second stage. We had 21 applicants from 20 countries in the second stage, the international stage of the competition. And these 21 papers were assessed and ranked by chief editors of leading journals in immunology. I want to really thank their contribution to this competition. So these evaluators, you see their names, they're all editors in chief or high-ranking editors in journals of immunology or in related fields. And they had this very difficult task of taking 21 papers, going through all of them, ranking them, and choosing the one they considered best. And so the choice is based on the opinion of a lot of people, not just one. And again, I'm grateful for them. Those from this list who are in the audience are welcome to stand up, please. Yeah. Okay. So I want to tell you who the winners are. So we have 2 third-place winners. One of them is Lena Schallenberg. We've heard her lecture today. Where is she? Yes, Lena. We want to give you your certificate. Come here, please. Yeah, thank you very much. And second, third place, because they matched, okay? So we have a second, third place. This is Marcin Ciuba. Is that the right name? The right name? Martin is not here. He's online. You can hear us? You can see us? No. Anyway, so no. He will receive the certificate by mail. And our second place is Joachim Jansen from Sweden. Thank you very much. In the first place is Samuel, and again, this French name, Dijoux. I hope I pronounce it properly. You're welcome to come and get your certificate. Okay, so you stand here for a minute. So Samuel is going to give us a plenary lecture now. And I'm sorry, I'm not so good in just talking without reading so I'm going to read it to you, okay? So Sami is French, but he's actually from the Reunion Island. I had to check it out on Google Maps. I didn't know where Reunion Island were, but that's far away. But he is a PhD candidate at the Department of Ecosystem Biology and the Faculty of Sciences in the University of South Bohemia in the Czech Republic right now. So that's where he is now. So coming from an island, he's always been interested in biology and concepts involved in ecology and evolution. This led him to pursue his studies at Toulouse, where he started to develop a strong interest in ecological modeling. Population dynamics and programming for his master's degree. It is during a research internship in his second year of master that he discovered the originality of Czech Republic, its high standard researchers, and where he met his research team for today. So his PhD research focuses on the importance of physiological traits and external factors such as the warming, nutrients enrichment, or species invasions on the dynamics and structure of freshwater communities. The paper that him with his PhD supervisor published last year in Ecology Letters, which won the first prize of the SIL student competition, is the first chapter of his research for his PhD. And the floor is yours. We would like to hear your lecture. Thank you very much.
So, okay. So, yeah, and I should use this one with, so this is a pointer?
This is to move forward.
Forward, and
backwards, and there's no pointer.
Okay, so, great. And this is a pointer, yes?
There's no pointer.
Okay, so no pointer. Okay, fine. So, hi everyone, and thank you to be here at the time of today. So I would like to thank all the organizers of the conference, because it was quite an amazing conference and a big organization. And I would love to thank also all the editors in the student competition. It's quite overwhelming to be here, actually. So let's jump to the main topic. So today I will present you the community structure and collapses in multi-channel food webs. And when I was preparing this talk, I realized that it was quite difficult to picture how to represent the structure and collapses of such food webs. So to me, the most simpler way was to make you picture yourself when you were kids and you were building sandcastles. So you were putting a lot of effort and time to do the best castle on the beach, but yet there were at some point waves that would destroy it in a few seconds. So for me, it's quite well illustrating. So during this talk, we will navigate through different concepts that are related with multi-channel food webs. So we will go through spatial heterogeneity in aquatic ecosystems. We will see the different drivers of species coexistence and exclusion before speaking of collapses and regime shifts. And then I will present you some of my results on the roles of body size and mesohabitat productivities in community structure. And I will finally speak about emergentally effect in multi-channel food webs before concluding. So if you get lost through this talk, you just have to follow this bear, like here. So aquatic ecosystem represent a wide range of different habitats that differ in terms of physical and chemical properties. These different habitats can seem compartmented, but they are actually linked through the movement of the organism in these different systems. So either in standing waters, we will have the migration, horizontal or vertical migrations, linking pelagic systems to either littoral or benthic systems. Or on a larger scale, we will have the migrations of species between upstream and downstream in riverine system. So these different organisms tend, as they are mobile, when they occupy higher trophic position, they will tend also to connect more spatially separated habitats. And by doing so, they will also connect all the phytoplankton derive carbon, illustrating this hum-shaped relationship with the trophic position. So we can represent multi-channel food webs this way. With, on one side, we will have the green food webs that rely on autotrophic photosynthetic activities with all the autotrophs that produce the biomass with microphyte, diatom, cyanobacteria, algae, and so on. That will be preyed upon the plankton and which be the diet of planktivorous species. On the other hand, we will have the brown food webs that rely on the decomposition of alloctonous nutrients, where we will observe all microinvertebrates, and among them different filters, scrapers, shredders, and so on. And this insect will then be the prey of benthivorous species, fishes, and when reaching the top of the trophic level in the system, both planktivorous species and benthivorous species will share the same common predators, such as northern pike or pike perch, for example. So here I want first to focus with some basic, with the top layers, with some of the theory here of what's happening when two species or two taxa share common predators. When this happens in habitats, we have the emergence of an apparent competition when one prey species will have a negative effect on the other one because by increasing the predator biomass, it will lead to a negative impact on its competitor. So in theory, we usually predict that coexistence do not happen usually, because in natural systems we have the presence of So in natural system we have different type of asymmetries that will that will lead to asymmetric predation pressure, and that will lead to the exclusion of one of the competitor from the system. So naturally, theory should predict that multi-channel food webs should be disconnected and not stable. But yet, they are stable. In multi-channel food webs, we usually observe two types of asymmetries. The first one rely on the nutrient availabilities, with the better availabilities of nutrient in pelagic systems that will lead to a difference in terms of bottom-up controls on species. So here we will have higher nitrogen and phosphorus content for herbivores compared to competing detritivores. And this difference in terms of bottom-up control will also impact differently species growth rate, their abundance and biomass, and later on the dynamic of nutrient flow in the system. The second type of asymmetries we usually observe in multi-channel food webs are the size spectrum within these benthic and pelagic pathways. Usually, benthic animals tend to be larger than pelagic consumers. And here it's important because body size is it's a master trait in ecology, because it has important impact on individual scale by influencing the consumption of energy and its allocation between growth or reproduction. By doing so, body size will also have an influence on species life cycles and its life history traits. For example, by influencing the time when a species will have to migrate to a new habitat to reproduce. And finally, body size has a key importance in the community with this kind of size spectrum where the smaller individuals or species are usually the prey of larger ones. So coming back to this type of asymmetries in multi-channel food webs, we can ask ourselves this question: how can such linkage of asymmetric channels produce a stable community? So to answer to this question, we explored in our paper the role of consumer body size and mesohabitat productivities by increasing free scales from individual to community. So we look at what happens on consumer life histories, then to be able to understand the structure of trophic chain, and later on what's happened on multi-channel food web structure. So we start by using the biomass-based model developed 20 years ago already by André Dijoux and Leonard Persson. And this model consisting of a simple trophic chain with a perch feeding on roach that were feeding on zooplankton, the Daphnia. And this system, only the roach were considered as a non-structured, a size-structured population, which look like here, basically. It's sad that I don't have a pointer, but yeah. This system represents basically the size spectrum of consumer from their birth to when they can reach the asymptotic size, and in the early stage of juveniles, they are predated by top predators, by the perch. And once they mature, they will reproduce and form the new generation, and so on. So, I will stop here just quickly to ask you whether you know what is the emergentary effect and alternative stable state. So, who knows? Yes? And who forgot or doesn't know? Yeah. Okay, so I will basically explain them quite quickly. So this model leads to this kind of ecological surprise in natural system. So the first one is the emergentary effect, which is due to the presence of environmental stressors, for example, the lack of a prey, so not enough resource, or due to over-harvesting. It will lead to a strong regulation, a decrease in population density for the predator until reaching a threshold. So here is the yellow star. If the population density becomes lower to this threshold, then the predator become extinct automatically. And on community structure, this kind of effect lead to an alternative stable state. So when we know the historical background of the species, we can predict mathematically that how the community state will change over a gradient of stressor. So here we start with the community state 1, and when reaching the threshold, the community will suddenly shift to the state 2 because the predator will disappear from the system. However, if we do not have access to the history of the population of the species, then we have this kind of black box where in this phase we can have the superposition of two states of the community. So here, think of a black box where the fish is at the same time dead and alive. So it's a bit like the Schrödinger cat, but here it's a fish. And whether you will open the box, you will get one state. So this is important for the rest, so think about it. So this ecological surprise were later empirically proven. So, for example, with the known collapse of the northern cod, so this is a species which was harvesting over the 5 past centuries, but over the last centuries, there was over-harvesting of the fish population until reaching a peak of something like 810,000 tons of fish collected. And of course, this has a drastic impact on the population stock. So it led to a brusque, abrupt decline of the species size that is nowadays under less than 1% of its initial stock. And still so far, even though there were some new regulation on the harvesting on this population, the population start to recover, but still too slow to reach a sustainable stock. So recovery takes a long time. And the disappearance of top predators in systems have drastic consequences on other type of the system. So here it's an example of the forest kelp and urchin barrens that also lead to a shift of the dominance between the kelp bed to urchin barrens due to weather, due to the overfishing, or also the disappearance of top predators, such as the sea otter, for example. Another example of the alternative stable state, and I think it's the most famous word of the conference, is eutrophication, which is the shift from macrophyte to cyanobacteria due to increasing nutrient loading in the system. So here, eventually the fishing is not forcibly involved here, but fish removal can enable, through a biomanipulation experiment, can reverse eventually the process and enable the oligotrophication by decreasing the pressure on grazers that will deplete the cyanobacteria biomass. So coming back to our model now, so we use on one side the initial trophic chain that were developed by André Dijoux and Leonard Persson, and we extend this system to simplistic multi-channel food webs where we could involve or look at two types of asymmetries. The first one was the mesohabitat productivities that between pathway, which was basically the carrying capacity of the resource. And the second type of asymmetries was the body size ratio between competing species, the consumer. So the first result we observed at ontogeny level is that bigger is better, so, which means that, for example, when we compare pelagic individual to a larger benthic individual, we have usually first this shift of the size spectrum of the individual, because individuals are born larger and we reach a larger asymptotic size. But in presence of top predators, this larger species will tend to have a decreased window of predation risk, so they will escape faster to predation, and this will have an impact by releasing the pressure and having more adults that will reproduce for the next generation compared to their pelagic consumers. So now, using this result for traffic chain, we first look at what happens if we just consider two systems that are compartmented. So each species stay in their area. And so we have a two-dimension bifurcation plot where we observe in the y-axis the consumer size and in x-axis the mesohabitat productivities. And here the large consumer size can represent basically what's happening for benthic systems, while the blue arrows show what's happening for pelagic system. So here we observe that the community structure will shift from successively from Daphnia to consumer resource in green. In blue, the system will have enough nutrient to enable the invasion of predator, and in orange is the phase where we observe this emergentally effect and alternative stable state. So to resume, to summarize this result, basically it's that when we have larger consumer, the system will need more rich habitat for predator to persist in the system. And at the same time, this means also that there will be larger windows of mesohabitat productivities when we will have a separation between predator collapse and its recovery. So now let's see what's happening on the multi-channel food webs, where we will have the mobile predator. And we first take the not realistic case where consumers have the same size. So we look at how when we have change in benthic productivities or pelagic productivities, it will shift the community state. So these two arrows represent what happens in the trophic chain, as we observed before. But here we are interested to look at the coexistence case. And what we observed is that in presence of same-size consumer, the coexistence between species will rely on an equal energy partition in terms of resource. And if we tend to have one system which is becoming more rich than the other, the multi-channel food web will shift toward the trophic chain with the disappearance of one of the consumer species. So now, the second, but this time this is a realistic case where we have the larger benthic consumer. And what we observe is that instead of being the coexistence arrow being along this equal energy partition, this coexistence is driven by the control of the benthic productivity. So to summarize this result, is that coexistence is driven by productivity in the mesohabitat of larger consumer. So here, with a control in benthic system. And knowing these two results, we can generalize and understand what keeps multi-channel food webs together. The first time, as we saw earlier, that there was indeed the asymmetric production between mesohabitat and the asymmetric size structure of intermediate consumers. And actually, what we observe naturally is that we have the compensation of these two types of asymmetries that compensate compensate each other, and basically will have an impact on the nutrient flow, and when reaching the top predator species, we will have the same energy. So both pathways will coexist. But yet, we didn't stop here. So do you think we found more ecological surprise or not? Yes? No? Yeah? Indeed. So, yeah, we discover new emergent allele effect, and so new alternative stable state that were related with multi-channel food webs. So, like we saw earlier, it's happening also for the top predator, even in multi-channel food webs, along when we increase or decrease the system productivity. This time, we can have also the same effect, but for intermediate consumer. And this time, the stressors for consumer is a predation pressure. Sorry. So in case of too strong predation pressure, the consumer would disappear. And yet, it's not over. These two types of emergent allele effect can be combined together. So for example, the invasion of top predator will lead directly to the extinction of the inferior consumer. And the last one, and the more difficult to understand, is the cascading emergent allele effect, where instead of being combined, we have a consecutive of two types of alternative stable state. So here, when the system productivity increase, we will have the extinction or recovery of top predator, but yet if the system continue to be enriched, the predation pressure will push the consumer to disappear. And let me just illustrate this case with the case of eutrophication. We can think of the multi-channel food web as a state of the lake that is a mesotrophic lake. So there is two ways to disrupt this the multi-channel food web. One would be oligotrophication by the disappearance of the predators that link this pathway, or the eutrophication, which lead to asymmetric predation pressure, and one consumer would disappear. So the first formation that we observed was this kind of stair, where the system along the gradient of productivity will shift consecutively from one state to another. And if we decrease, we would observe the inverse recovery. Or, on a worst case, we could have a stronger overlap between eutrophic and oligotrophic state, which makes the intermediate state completely hidden. So, as you can see, so this leads to more complex things to analyze in natural system, because one state might not be visible, one shift. So to summarize all this talk, I have 3 key take-home messages for you. So the first one is that consumer size modulates the link between habitat productivity and persistence of top predators through emergent allele effect. The second point is multi-channel food webs that rely on the symmetry of asymmetries through the compensation of difference in body size and mesohabitat productivity. And finally, that environmental stressors can trigger previously undocumented collapses within the community. So our system were quite simplistic compared to real natural system. So I think that there is plenty of room for research, for collaborative research to do from theory, field sampling, experiment, mesocosm. So we should think of more cohesive collaboration, and especially under the context of multiple stressors, because we can have additive, synergistic, or antagonistic effect. Among a few examples, brownification, harvesting, temperature, invasion, but we also saw microplastic and antibiotics through this conference. So on that, I would like first, I hope that this talk will make you read our papers, of course. And that being said, I would like to thank my David for his help, his kind of advice, my team, and also the Hydrobiology Institute for all their kind of advice, or if they peer review my talk and enable me to be less nerdy. So if you understand something, it's also thanks to them. And yeah, thank you again for your attention.
Thank you very much for this impressive talk, and the floor is open to questions. We have another few minutes. No questions?
Don't be shy.
Okay, then we will proceed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Don't forget your certificate. So now it's our tradition that the second and third place winners also get on the podium and say a few words about their impression of the Congress. And I'd like to first invite our second place winner, Joachim. Please come on.
So before I start, I liked every part of the conference except the public speaking part, but here we are. So thank you for bearing with me. So first of all, I would like to extend a word of thanks to Tamar and the members of the evaluating committee for facilitating the award. And I would also like to extend my gratitude to two mentors, without whom the paper would not have been possible. The first is Patrick Krill, who recently retired from Stockholm University. And the second is Sally McIntyre from the University of California, Santa Barbara, who gave the Baldy Memorial Lecture actually in 2018 and was awarded the Naumann Tienemann Medal this year for her outstanding contributions to our field, but could not be here in person. This is my first SIL conference in person, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. In the words of Samuel, it was amazing. And it was good to meet so many new and familiar colleagues here and share the joy of thinking together. And the following is my personal impression of the conference and some of the experiences that stood out to me. We started on Sunday with inspiring talks from distinguished speakers and some beautiful music. Personal highlights were our president, Thomas Mehner's talk about how our background can infuse our work and provides a unique perspective as exemplified by the founders of our society. And also Gene Likens, who looked forward to the future of our field, big data, remote sensing, and genomics. And both perspectives for me resonated through the following 3 days. Particularly memorable was Tuesday's plenary talk by Amy Rosemont about the value of surprise as a reflection of our scientific and societal beliefs. And one of the advantages of being an early career researcher is that you get to be surprised a lot. And the diversity of the talks, posters, and workshops offered many opportunities to learn new things and be surprised. Two aspects I want to mention here were about how much integration there already is between field observations and remote sensing and modeling as well, but also how much work there is still to do in our field in terms of gender equality and social justice, and the application of our knowledge to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. To early career researchers, conferences can be defining moments. for their career, or whether it's for networking, new ideas, or just to have motivation to actually stay in science. So it is important that conferences are very well organized, and I think this conference was organized very well. It was large enough to meet new people and expand your network, but small enough to find common ground between the people you meet. And being in Berlin, the mingling was aided much by the excellence of the beer, or many beers. And I would like to close with a word of thanks to the conference organizers, the leadership of our esteemed society, the session chairs, and to all who attended virtually and in person. Thank you very much.
And I'd like to now invite Lena Schellenberg.
Thanks. I'm just going to be very quick. I just wanted to say a big thank you to the organizers of the Student Award competition. I think it's a really important aspect to have in a society. It really helps get a lot of young people involved, such as myself. So thank you. Thanks a lot to the judges. Wow, 21 papers to read through on top of your workloads. That's hefty. So thank you so much for all your hard work. Thank you to Joyce Moss for continuing this. I really can't stress how important I think it is for to be helping young students and early career researchers to be able to come to congresses like this and mix with these sorts of minds. So thank you. This has been an amazing conference. It's been a while since we've been able to get together thanks to COVID. And I think this was a great turnout in the end. I didn't know what to expect, whether it would be huge or tiny. And it was a really nice size to be able to connect. And I've met a lot of great people. So thank you all so much. Thanks.
Marcin? He's not talking? No. Okay. He's not here today. Okay, so I'm going to more or less get to the closure of this session by saying a few things about Judith Padisak, who is also not here today with us, but she has led this student competition with my help, the last 4 competitions until today, put a lot of energy, and I'd like to greatly thank her. And I'd like to, maybe we have a second, no more slides. I'd like to greatly, this one works? Yes, Judith Padisak. Yes, she's done a great job. But both of us are stepping down now, and I'd like to introduce you to the new ones who will run the competitions, the Brian Moss student competition in the future. And these are going to be, doesn't work? Doesn't work, yes, now it works. So, Maria de Los Angeles sitting here. You want to stand up a minute? Yes. Together with Ruben Samaroga from Austria, who is also at home, not here with us, but jointly they will be taking care of the competitions in the future. And I hope the competitions become even better. This has been a great asset to SIL and also to the students themselves. It's a big push to their career. And so please continue to encourage your students and those that are not even your personal students, but around you, students in immunology, to join SIL and participate in this competition. And we will shortly be announcing the 5th competition for the winners to present in another 2 years in Brazil. Okay, so this is the end of this session for today. And the next coming is the SIL working groups, each one of them. So SIL has several working groups, and this is another long-lasting activity of SIL. And we also have a tradition of giving the chairs of those working groups the podium here to report on the activities of their working group over the last, since the last Congress. So the first one is going to be Vadim Panov from the Aquatic Invasive